G'day and welcome to David Joshua Ford Live. Let me just get this one fix this one up. G'day, welcome to David Joshua Ford Live. This is episode 96 and we're talking about connecting Companion with Google Sheets, and I'm going to go through some use case scenarios of why you would want to do that and using metadata in your productions, and also show you how to set that up and make that connection, because there's a few little things there that can catch you out if you're not sure what you're looking for. And then also I have a new product, DJF Log, which is part of that, which is a sort of pre-built console, which is an easy way to input data from your productions into Google Sheets so that you can use that later in the edit suite or just for knowing what media you have in there. If you are in the comments, drop a comment and say hello. It'd be great to hear from you. Let me know where you're joining from and any questions that you have about live streaming, photography, video production. It'd be great to hear from you. All right, let's kick off and take a look at connecting Google Sheets and Companion and some of the use cases for getting metadata in and out of Companion. One of the great things about Google Sheets is that it's a pretty ubiquitous tool that many organizations use. So it means that you can use it for larger organizations and teams to bring a collaboration that's very easy for anyone with a laptop can be inputting data into a sheet that can then be used in Companion, and can also be taken from Companion, put back out to a sheet. So this is things like if you're a house of worship, making markers throughout a service of what was good or bad, or just different topics. Or if you're making a commercial or a short film, you could be using scene data and marking good takes, bad takes, that kind of thing. But there's many other ways that we can use it as well. So I'll go through some of those. Also, in terms of the devices that you can use, I got a variety of ones here. You might want to use something like the Stream Deck. So this is a pre-built profile that I have used here, and it means you can do things like on this sheet up here, do like a good take or a bad take, and you'll see it just starting to input data here. Or I could do sort of take one, take two, take three. So you can use it as a physical buttons that you can push to get data into a spreadsheet. But likewise, you might also just want to have that on a phone. So that's the same sort of thing. And you could just have multiple users who are then using Companion to input into the same spreadsheet. The other way that you could do it, of course, is on a laptop. And one of the handy things about this sort of method is that there's no peripherals that you have to worry about. Like, you can just carry a laptop around, and as long as you've got an internet connection, then you can be using the laptop to input more here. If we sort of, you'll see I'm still adding in metadata from just using a laptop. So all of these devices are connected, so you could have someone on a laptop somewhere and you could have someone else on Stream Deck, or you can also automate this so that the system just kind of runs in its own way. Let's take a look at one of the ways that I use this is with the PTZ profile that I've built. So you can store PTZ preset names in the Canon cameras themselves and then recall that into the profile that you're using. But you can also use that in Google Sheets. So jump over here, and you can see here I've got cameras A, B, C, D, E, F, and then presets 1 through to 36. And each of these cells is basically, camera A, preset 1 is wide shot, and then I've got mid shot, close up, that kind of stuff. So this makes it really easy for me to turn up at a shoot and just sort of list out all of the different camera angles that I want to use with a PTZ camera. And so I might jump in here and just go, got mid shot, close up, offset, desk, close up. And then over on my control panel, this is where that gets added in there. So if I wanted, desk ECU, like that, you'll see it'll then pop up here in this preset. So then I can just make an adjustment to my camera. So if I wanted to, let me just sort of zoom in a bit. Where are we on? Camera 1. getting a little bit slow, and there we go. And we could save that one as like me at the desk ECU, so I can jump back to my close-up, or I can jump back to my ECU. So it's just really easy to do all of your naming from one spreadsheet rather than going into different pages and doing it camera by camera. You can just sort of see everything at a glance in this spreadsheet. Let's jump back to a close-up because I'm a little bit too close there. The other way that I have been using this is with the YouTube module. So you can actually bring in metadata to then use within the stream. So you may have seen at the top of this live stream, I had 4 different comments that I was posting to kind of get people chatting and engage and let you know what's happening. And they are pre-written comments that I can just trigger off one after the other. So let's go over to my SuperSource again. And you can see on my chat, so I have like a PTZ spreadsheet. Then I have a spreadsheet with chat. And these are my sort of chat that I'm going to add to the beginning of each YouTube stream. And I can use variables within the cell as well. So you can see here, the first one's just like, hello, where are you joining from? So if you haven't said hello already, make sure you do that. And then the comment number 2 in column A, row 2, is on today's show we're looking at, and then I actually have a variable here, which is pulling info from H2R graphics. And so that's looking at the subheading title and then also the sort of subheading content. So it's sort of a way in which I don't have to update this every show. It's going to pull in the relevant data from the variables. So when I go into H2R graphics here, and then I go over to my variables tab, you can see this is where I write in the show title. So episode 96, Google Sheets. That's what ends up in the front of the show in the graphics there. And then I have usually 3 segments to a show. And that's where I can put in these list 1, list 1.2, 1.3. And the way that I've used it is basically like a heading for each chapter of the show, a bit of a description to elaborate on that in a sort of subheading. And then the third part is actually a URL. And that doesn't show up on the screen because it's not as useful and gets a bit messy. But that is metadata that I can pull from and use that to inject into the Google comments and also into the chat. So as we're going through each segment and I'm triggering these topics, it's actually putting down a link. So you would have seen in the link before that it will say part 1, Google Sheets and Companion use cases for metadata in and out of Companion, and then there's a hyperlink which would take you through to this link here, which is the DJF Log, which is sort of the profile that I've built to be able to control all of this metadata. So that's one way of pulling that via Companion into Google Sheets. So I'm using that variable, and then on my, I'll just jump over here. I'm in the process of building sort of a YouTube module, and that's where I can pull in chat data here. So I'm on chat 5 and there's nothing in there, so it'll say NA. But if I went back to number 1 and I could trigger that, and you'll see in the chat, it'll say, hello, where are you joining from in the world today? And if you look in the chat, you'll see that. And it's automatically updated to chat 2. So it just means I can sort of work my way through different chats in a show without having to sort of select the next one. It's just automatically updating. You'll see also the same sort of thing here is within the YouTube module is the ability to lay down chapter markers within YouTube. And that's really handy for live streams because you have these long form 1 hour sort of rambling content, and there might be something really great within that you want to mark. And so that's where you can add in these chapter markers, which I'll probably have to edit after the show if I add these in here. But it's appending it as we go along, and it's pulling in the data from Google Sheets. So if I go back to my super source, you'll see I've got a page called chapter, and I've got 3 chapters here, which is welcome to the show, a demonstration, and part 3 install process. This could be as long as you want, and I've just got 3 parts to the show here. And then that means I can pull in that data here. So you'll see here it says part 1, welcome to the show. So that is pulling in that data, but if I wanted to, I could go to part 2, demonstration of how to install. I'm going to go part 1, and we're just going to lay this down. And now if you refresh the browser, actually, you don't even need to have to refresh the browser. You just got to wait maybe 10 seconds, and then the description of this live stream will update. I was wondering if I can pull that in without getting an audio loop playback. Let me see if I got this one. I'm going to pull in that. I'll mute that. I'm going to pull in this window to show here. There we go. And you can see, let me pull that up for you. Super source. So you can see here, I'm watching my live stream back, and already at the bottom, it's appending the chapters as we go along. So I have my own chapters that are built into this using my DJF queue method, but this one is adding in the pre-roll at 00, which is necessary for it to understand that these are chapters coming up. And then each time I press this, it is going to add in welcome to the show. So let me give that another go. If I could just go back to, I'll go to part 2, demonstration. So I've just hit that now, and it only takes a couple of seconds. It should just append it as we go. Hopefully. Might have to refresh. But that markers, there we go. So it's about 10 seconds for it to append this in. And so this is using a mixture of the Companion YouTube module to insert it into YouTube. But what we're talking today about is Google Sheets, and that is where I'm pulling in that chapter data from. Let me just close that window down from here so that you can lay out the content of a show. So you can imagine this would be very helpful if you are a live streamer or a content creator. You could basically list out all the different segments of your show, and it can give you a talking point to talk to. And also, as you trigger those, each segment of the show, you can have Companion automatically update that onto the next segment. So you can just have one button that you press to move through segments of the show, and each time you move through the next segment, the chapter marker is laid down in your live stream. So, and that's a huge time saver. I mean, trust me, the amount of time it takes to, after a live stream, go back and to mark out all of your chapters, just, worth it for that alone. All right. So the last one that I wanted to demo here is DJF Log, which I'll sort of come back to that at the end of how to install it. But just to give you an idea of, either something that you could, purchase from my website to make your life easier, or if you want to, you can sort of take the principles here and build your own one. So I have, as I was showing you before, this is DJF Log, and it has basically sort of an input and an output. So if I go back to my super source, and the input is this lists row. So I've got lists 1, 2, 3 here, and this could be content such as like a content creator who is building out different parts of talking about lighting and DMX and different lighting units and how to set that up. So that was an example from one of my own live streams from last year, where I've got a whole bunch of content that I'm trying to cover, either as a pre-recorded content creation, just in the studio, just recording things, or if you were doing it live, you could do the same sort of thing, just putting that in live. So that's the list data there. And, or else you could do something like questions. So if you, in my list 2 here, I've got some questions that you could use for interviews, and that can pull out that as the same sort of marker data that we were talking about before. Or list 3, I have an example of either like a short film or a commercial where you have shot listed out a number of shots. So I've got 6 shots here of a guy sitting at a living room table who gets a notification and sees a shadowy figure in the doorway and braces himself and stands up. So those sort of shots could have that sort of shot number, the shot type in terms of mid shot, close up, that kind of stuff, and then some scene description, and you can bring this in to the log. So if I just go over to over here, I've got the same spreadsheet, just open in another window. I'll just delete that data in log. This is log 1. So on this console, I can either generate a new list or a new log, and then I can choose which list I want to pull from and which log I want to output to. So I'm just going to use log 1 to output to, and I'm going to pull in maybe list 3, which was this short film / commercial that we've got. And you can see within that I'm on log row 13, so I'm going to jump back. I'm just going to jump back to log row 1, and then my list row is 1. So I could choose which one of these shot numbers I want to start at. I'm just going to start at the top, and I could do take 1. 3, is that right? Am I on the right log? Light log. Take 2. Oop, I'm going to scroll up so we can see it. There we go. I was not scrolled all the way back. And there we go. I was like, where is that data? And take 3, and you say that was a good take, so we're going to move on to the next shot, and we go take 1, and there was a pickup, and there was a bit of a line flub, and another pickup, and then we did a take 2, and then we moved on to the next shot, and we did take 1, and that was awesome. So we moved on to shot 4, and we did take 1 of that and take 2 of that, and then we moved on to onto shot 5, and good take, but then something happened there that we weren't sure about from legal point of view, so we can hit hold for review, and we'll do take 2, and so we can sort of work our way down, and you can see what we've got in here is column A is outputting the time of day, so in 24-hour time, 14:16, and then column B is outputting the time code of my recording device. In my instance, it's an ATEM Mini Extreme ISO, but these are all variables, so in field, like column A or column B, you could change what variables you want in there. If you want something from vMix or OBS, you could use that variable within Companion to use a different device's timecode. And then column C is pulling in the list data that we had over on this side. And then the last column D is kind of the comment of whether it was like which take number it was, whether it was good or bad, that kind of thing. And then the last one I have is automark on or off here. So when automark is on, it will listen for running an H2R comment, is the way it's set up. So if let me see here, make sure, I didn't update that, so I'm not bringing in comment data. I changed my URL. Where is it? Where are we? Oh, having trouble time doing this, bring this in. I can't really show that right now because I'm not set up with that. But it would trigger that anytime you sort of have a iPad and you're triggering a comment, it would trigger that and show it up in, and it would log it in there. All right, let me see. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to, I moved my Companion installation over to, oh man. Let me just reconnect to this. I removed my Companion installation and it's a little harder to, I need to reset where the comments come in, which is, if I can show you what I'm doing here, so you're not lost. So let's see if I get this right. So I've moved all of my Companion installation over to a Mac Mini, and I knew there'd be something I forgot, which was, this is all running, hang on, I'm just gonna quit this. So I pull in the YouTube comments via Social Ninja. Maybe it's H2R. No, it is listening to the right one. And then in Social Ninja, I have to pull in, I think it's mechanics, this H2R server. So I don't have any comments coming in because I changed my server. All right, activate. Okay, hopefully that works. And now I will have comments coming in. But this is what I've been moving all of my IP addresses around, and I'm now accessing Companion remotely on a M4 Mac Mini, which I'll talk about in weeks to come. But hopefully that should. Let me just send a test one. Send a fake message. Let me stop that and activate live and public. There we go. Still not getting that. I feel like I need to troubleshoot this. Well, I was trying to bring in your comments, but I can't seem to bring in the comments through there. I'm missing something, I think. Test comment. There we go. All right, so I've got my comments up and running again. It's with, so just to go over what I was doing there, so I'm running Social Stream Ninja, and you can add your URL, your YouTube channel name in here, and then it will open this pop-up and it will listen for it, but only the incoming stuff will be sent through, and because I hadn't updated this URL, so this is down here in the mechanics, I had to send to H2R server, and I'd changed my server but not updated that one, which H2R Graphics is now pulling the data source from the HTTP listener, and that has changed and updated, but the other one didn't. So that's a good point. I will be talking about the Mac Mini headless transition that I've been doing, and maybe doing another H2R graphics would be good, because I need to talk about that as well, and the little dot up there that I got to get rid of that through some terminal commands. Here we go. Captimedia, yes, you can do it. We did it. All right, so now I have all of your comments coming in to here, and I can chat with you and put it up on the screen, and all of that is going to be logged into YouTube, which is sort of related to the Google Sheets. So if you have any comments as we go along, let me know, and starting fresh from now. Otherwise, we shall, let me just see if I can pull up, where was it? Preview, full screen, okay. And let's jump over to part 2. So let's take a look at connecting Companion to Google Sheets, because there can be a little bit confusing of how to do that, of how to connect it to the Google Cloud API. There is some sensitive data in here, so I have been through and already done this and made a slideshow presentation for you, so we can run through that. Let's take a look now. All right, so if you go to Companion and go to the connections page, add a connection, and you can add in Google Sheets, and you can either, or if you've downloaded my profile, it'll already be there. Click on Google Sheets, and then in this information section, go to the Google Cloud Console, where the API and Services tab, you'll see Enable APIs and Servers and turn on the Google Sheets API. That should be fairly straightforward. Once you've done that, come back to this page, click on this second link here, and you'll see that is going to bounce you out to create some credentials and an OAuth client ID. I'm going to jump over here. So create some credentials, create the OAuth client ID, and then choose web application as the type and give it a custom name. I've called mine your Google Sheets connection. And then further down the page, authorize redirect URIs. Use something like localhost /8001, hit create, and it will generate a client ID and a client secret, which you can click to copy on the side there. Come back to Companion and paste that into the client ID and client secret area. Also put in the same redirect URI that you had put in there. Turn on reference spreadsheets by index instead of ID, and then hit save. Once you've hit save, you may need to click back on Google Sheets and come back to this third link here to trigger the Google Sheets authentication process. This is going to open up a new window, and you'll have to choose one of your Google accounts, choose the account that you have set up the API with, and it'll say Google hasn't verified this app, and you can continue on. Do you want to confirm it? Yes, we know this is the app that we set up, so that's okay. And then it'll bring you to this page, which at first glance is where a lot of people get lost because there's not really any feedback here. It just looks like it's been an error. But what you're looking for is to copy this code that we've selected in here. So everything after code equals, so the / all the way through to the bit before and scope. If you select that, copy that, come back to Companion, and in the OAuth code field here, paste that in and hit save. And now once you've done that, you'll see this little green check icon here, and that will let you know that you have successfully connected Companion with Google Sheets. Now we can go into the same Google account for Google Spreadsheets and just create any spreadsheet that you like. You don't even have to change permissions, but just copy the index ID of that spreadsheet, which is everything after spreadsheet /d/. So this is the 1x all the way through to APQ. So the bit before /edit, copy that, come back to Google Sheets in Companion, paste that into the spreadsheet ID's space separated area there, and hit save again. Just a note here that because we turned on reference by index rather than ID, it means that the module is going to operate with indexes like 0, 1, 2, 3 for each of the spreadsheets. So this first spreadsheet is going to be index 0. That's the one that I'm using for all of my profiles. But if you had a second spreadsheet that you wanted to add in, you would just add a space and then paste in the next one of that spreadsheet ID, and then that would be referenced in Companion as index 1, and then you could do index 2, 3, so on if you have more spreadsheets. I found it good to just use one spreadsheet, and then you can have multiple sheets within that, workbook or whatever the language is for Google Sheets. If you're using my profile, this is where you can now come to this page here that you've imported, and if you shift-click reset here, it's going to generate variables, and it's also going to generate the template sheets within Google Sheets. So once you click that button, if you went back to your spreadsheet, you'd see down the bottom, it's created next, list, and log 1, list 1 and log 1. And then the last thing to do after installing my profile is copy the menu button back to homepage of wherever you want to install that, and change the page to the page jump that you want to create a loop. So you can have a menu page and then jump to the log page and then go back to the menu page. And then you will have this kind of layout in either a web browser or the Stream Deck that we were talking about before, so that you can go through and log all of your data from Companion into Google Sheets. All right, hopefully that helps. That was a little overview at how to connect that, because once you've got Sheets connected, I haven't had a problem with that. It's just on and it works all the time, and I've Never had a problem with the reliability of the module, but some of those pages where you have to copy those links can get a bit confusing. So hopefully that helped just explain some of that process of setting that up and working with Google Sheets. All right, let me see. No questions about that. So let's jump along to part 3, and I just want to go back and talk a bit about DJF Log, which is my pre-built control panel to log production metadata. So if you want to get head start, I've built a page for a Stream Deck, or you can use it virtually on a computer or a tablet, so you can have all of these variables and metadata that is coming into Companion and going back out. So going back to what this looks like is a one-page, sort of 32 buttons, and it's basically, you've got your list rows and your log rows. So this is what you're pulling from. So here you can see I'm on list row 5, and I'm going to be inputting the time of day, the ATEM time code, the list row data here. So I'm on, remember, shot 5 from that short film that we were talking about creating. And then a comment here, which will vary depending on if you do a good take or a bad take or whatever that is. And then that is going to be writing from the list into the log. So I'm on log 17, like row 17 of log 1. And you can see the last data there that was input in terms of the time of day, the ATEM time code, and the scene data, and what the comment was in terms of take or good or bad. So you can quite easily update this with you could add a new list in here. So if I jump back to my super source, you can see, I'll just go across here. If I hit new list, then over here it's generated list 4, and that is reflected here. So now I could have something that has, part 1, part 2, part 3. And so I'm using list 4, row 1, and you can see part 1 is up here in there. And if I go part 2, part 3, so now I'm ready. I've got my chapters that I can pull from, but maybe I want a new log. I can see down here I've got 5 logs already. I'm on log 1, so I can actually just hit new log, and it won't overwrite the sheets that are already existing. So once I get up to log 5, once I get up to log, so I've got nothing there. I'm trying to scroll across. Once I hit that for log 6, it's generated log 6, or I could scroll across this way. So I'll bring that up on this spreadsheet because that's easier to see. So I've got sheet list 4, part 1, 2, 3, going into log 1, and it's reset the list and the list row and the log row. So we're back to the beginning of these spreadsheets. And I can also use something like this mark and next to basically lay down that current segment marker and then update it to the next. So you can see part 1 here. If I hit that, it's put that in here, time of day, the time code, the comment that we've pulled. So this was part 1 over here. That's pulled that across and has put in comment, which is just a sort of default field. But you can update that metadata to something else that you want. Like, for example, it could be the shot number. So we could go to the right page where we got under here, under comment, and I can, so each of these 4 input ones can be updated easily if you go to the button and then type in what you want. So if I want ATEM program 1 input, I would pull that from the variables, go to ATEM 1, where's ATEM 1? ATEM, and I could find the program program one input, I could copy that, go back to buttons, and then delete that and paste that in there. And then if I click this button, so shift click, it's going to be now inputting the variable data that it's pulling into that column. So now you can see I'm on part 2, and it's a bit bigger here, part 2. And so if I hit mark and next, all of this data is going to be put into A, B, C, D, row 2. So let's press that, and you can see super source is there. And let's go to my close-up. So I'm just going to hit mark and next, and I'm going to hit what I have my overhead shot, mark and next, and then we go back to super source. So you can see the data that was put in here was, we hit part 2, which was super source was the input, and then camera 1 or Canon camera 1 is what I've got in my labels, and then camera 2 was my overhead shot. So that's a way, if you just want to log all of the you know, camera angles that you're on at a particular time, you could pull in the metadata that way. So hopefully that was helpful. All right. Okay. Maverick says, we'll love a version of this that makes markers that you can import into Davinci Resolve. I've thought about that. I guess I just have to work out, like, I don't know if it's a CSV or something file in terms of taking the spreadsheet data and turning it into some sort of EDL. It's probably totally possible. I just haven't looked that far in terms of how to take spreadsheet data into what was I going to say? Davinci. But where that could be super helpful for my use case, at least, is I'm using an ATEM 2ME Constellation as my main switcher, and then I've got 8 outputs that are going into an Extreme, and it's recording program on input 1, and then cameras 1 and 2 on inputs 2 and 3, and then a couple of, you know, super source and some other things through. So at the end of a live stream, I don't actually have any workable Davinci file, because the Extreme has just been, it's got camera 1 program input, and it's not recording anything. So I don't have that metadata in there, but there's probably a way that you could do that. So you know, create a log of, and this would be, as you were probably aware, in Companion, you could just set up triggers so that every time you switch an angle, it would, you know, log that. So essentially you end up with an EDL at the end of a show. So that would be super helpful. Also because Companion has so many devices, you now have a way of logging across devices, or like not even recording something, but like, you know, like back in the day, or not back in the day, we still do this, but sometimes if you got a long form interview, you might roll audio for 2 hours and your camera will start and stop because you don't want to be taking up tons of video data in a dead take. So you stop your camera and then you sync that using timecode. You know, the advantage of this Google Sheets scenario is that you can be logging metadata or even things that happen offset into a spreadsheet, and you're not rolling any sort of audio or that kind of stuff. Also incredibly impressive that the chapters are automatically updating. Yeah, that's part of what I've enjoyed sort of building into this, is trying to create something intuitive. The same sort of thing around, where are we? Go back to super source. Is if we go, I'll come back to my spreadsheet here. I'm trying to get a bigger view for you. When you change your list row it resets the take number. So we're on log 7, so it's going to be inputting it here. And you can see I've gone back to list row 1, so it's back to part 1. So if I hit take 1 like this, it's input take 1, and I can go take 2, take 3, and it's going to keep on showing me what the next take will be, take 4, take 5. So we can just go nuts with a ton of takes on part 1. And then when we go, all right, take 9, that was amazing, we got it. Then we can go to the next shot, part 2, and the take number has been reset here, so you don't have to, you know, go back and say, okay, take 1 again. This is just all updating it as you go along. So now this is all part 2, take 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 10. What are we up to? 11, 12. Ooh, am I sending too many? Maybe only up to 9. I have to look into that. And then part 3 and take 2. What am I doing? I have to look at that. I feel like it's gone, something's gone askew there. But that is, let me go back to just an NA field. Interesting. I don't know if I was going too fast there. Something to note is on, let me see if I can go to something that's actually usable. So in the settings here, the poll per second, I've set it to 1.3. By default, it's 1.5 intervals per second. You don't want to, if you go, like the lower your number is, like the more frequently it's refreshing the data, which is obviously good for being up to date. But if you go too much, then you're going to be sending too many requests to Google's API and it will shut you off. So you don't want to do that. That's particularly a problem with the YouTube module, as I've been sort of playing around with the levels that the YouTube API can handle in requests per day. So probably stick to this 1.5 and don't go below that. I've got it 1.3, but I should probably make it 1.5. Otherwise, you'll probably get this sort of thing where, like I'm doing, you know, if I do one every like half second, it seems to be fine. If I go, that's holding up too. It seems to be getting a lot of data in there. 22. No, it's getting a little stuck. So maybe don't do like, you know, 10 presses in a second. I'd probably limit it to like 2 or 3 presses per second. Otherwise you might get a little bit of a going past what the API can handle. Interesting. Good point. ChatGPT made it sound pretty easy to convert Google Sheet as CSV into something Davinci could use as a marker import. I should try that. Maybe I'll give that a go at some point. Wonder what that would be, like angle number instead of the camera name label, something like that. And then that would be interesting, because what I like about this is this very low overhead in terms of data recording. Like I was saying before with the audio example of, you don't want to run a camera for 2 hours, so you run, the audio person runs like a consistent audio track, so you can kind of lay up against that. Obviously, timecode boxes are great because, you know, timecode data is free in a sense of, you know, you're not having gigabytes upon gigabytes just to get a consistent syncing of clips. So that would be interesting. Okay, now that I have my markers turned back on, I can show you what I was trying to show you before, which is when I bring on a comment, I have auto mark. So let's go to close up. So I can turn it off if so I don't want it to run, but I can also turn it on. And let me see. So when I run a comment, it'll come over the top and it'll also log. Let me go to super source so you can see that hitting down here. So it should come in here. I'm just gonna run test comment. So if I go test, to go press it properly, test comment comes on. We talk about, hey, this is great, love it. And you can see David Joshua Ford test comment is in here. You know, Maverick Mario, would love to see a version that makes markers that you can import into Davinci Resolve. So if we look back here, all of this has been logged to in the spreadsheet. So I can see the time of day, I can see where in my ATEM recording I'm going to find that, you know, 47 minutes, 56 seconds, and whatever part of, you know, what part of the content I'm creating would be in here. So I'm part 3, but you could give it a better name in the list spreadsheet. And then pulling in from H2R graphics is the username. And then I've got semicolon space, and then the comment of like, we'd love to see a version of this. So it just gives a really good way of pulling in metadata in a way that's very flexible. Previous to this, and I still do in the background, I log all of this to Notion as well. So Companion also has a module called, I think it's called timestamp, but it connects to Notion, and you can basically timestamp the same sort of thing in terms of time of day. And I think it was about a year ago, I was doing some live streams about this when it was a little bit more rudimentary, and there were a few changes that were made to it that meant that the data that was logged was much more consistent in terms of hours, minutes, seconds, and it meant that you could use that to, and then I had to create a Google spreadsheet to update it to sync it with the start of the live stream, because when you start a Notion document, it's different to like what YouTube sees as comments, which is one of the nice things about the YouTube module, is that when you hit a chapter marker, it actually syncs up with the content in the live stream. But I still do use Notion in the background as a, it's also sending it out just as another way, just in case I've messed up something in the YouTube module and I can't connect to that, I'm still logging things into Notion. So eventually I'm going to be probably logging things in Google Spreadsheets and Notion, and also doing the live chapter markers. And it just means in my live stream, if something goes wrong with one of those, then I can manually update the chapters later on. So hopefully that is helpful. Stream cutting in and out. Hopefully not. Where are we? Is the stream cutting in and out? It shouldn't be. It is good. Because, and this is something I'll talk about in a couple of weeks, is Companion Buddy reached out and they sent me some devices. I'm trying to see if I've got any. Let me see if I can go to this camera. Air 3. Whoa, let's cut to Air 3. So I've got these Companion Buddy things up here, and I've also got my one up here, which, I think I'm turning that camera off. You'll see up here, little blinker. What am I doing there? That was funny. Wonder why that is. Wonder why that went green. It wasn't meant to go green, but this is my new system of making sure that everything is working. Let's come back to camera 1. It's my wireless little camera there. Oh, it's a better view. I should put that view down here. There we go. And then you can get a shot of the studio from behind. So last week when I went live, something in the YouTube module, I think my timing of the events was too short, and the go live comment was lost. And so it didn't go live, but then, you know, if you ever look on the back page of YouTube, as we're doing, where are we? Over here, over here. This feedback is really bad on, I mean, I guess it has this tiny little live thing, but the sort of end stream button is this tiny little white button, and on the, like the same thing as when you start a stream, it says go live, and it's this tiny little white button at the top corner, and it's very easy to miss that because you can be looking at the preview and you're getting, your web encoder is sending out the video and you're seeing it come through YouTube, and it looks good and it says excellent connection, and you're getting chats come in here, and so, you know, you think people are watching it. So anyway, so I've built a feedback system now. Partly it's using Screen Deck. So on my monitor here, I've got sort of a sidebar of all the different things, and so these three are red, and that is showing me that, you know, the number of viewers, and I'm streaming properly, and I'm recording, and we're going to the right YouTube event. So that's all looking good. But then on the front side of this, which I think I can cut to this one here, I now have my teleprompter. So I've got my confidence monitor, yeah, which has the multi-view, and I can see what I'm doing. And then I have my teleprompter, which is just the program feed, so I can make sure I'm on the right shot. And then you can see up the top, I've got this little companion buddy, which is a solid red. I know it looks kind of yellow, but if something goes, if one of those four things in terms of going live, stream quality, web encoder, or recording status is wrong, like if it's out of alignment, then this button will like flash rapidly. And so that's the way that I have now, and I had to do a test stream to make sure I got all the feedback right. But it means that now in my line of sight, I have this red solid button telling me that we are live. And if anything is wrong, it is going to flash at me, and then I will be able to fix that. So we'll talk a bit about Companion Buddy in a week or two, once I've had a little chance to play with it a bit more and to sort of think up some use case scenarios for you guys. And, you know, things that can get your live stream off tracks and things that can get them back on track. All right, Jamie says, when you lay down the chapter markers in the YouTube description, does it get the time from your equipment, or are you pulling YouTube time? That's a great question. I'm also going to do a YouTube show in a couple of weeks too, I think, once I finish building out my YouTube profile, because I found it really nice being able to use a Stream Deck to control YouTube in terms of starting and stopping, and also just like viewing the number of viewers, like how many viewers there are, and if your stream health is good and all that kind of stuff. So it's pulling from, let me go to my, let's go to YouTube page. And we can go to SuperSource so you can have a look. All right, so as I said, I'm in the process of building this. Let's just create a button, and it's chapter marker. So the command here is add chapter timecode to description, and you can choose your broadcast. I'm just choosing the unfinished/planned 0. This is what I was saying before about indexes with sheets. So index 0 is what I'm pulling for my first spreadsheet in that list of index IDs. And the same thing with YouTube is everything I'm building is built around index 0, which is going to be the, trying to see if I've got a example I can pull in. Content, live, let me pull in this. Here we go. Okay, so it's going to be basically time and date based on whatever's soonest. So these are my past live streams, and you can see this is the one that's live now. but I would have like future ones here, and you could create multiple live streams, and you could control multiple live streams if you want. I've gone and kept it more simple, which is just having the most recent live stream. So for example, the one today was set at 2 p.m. January 23rd, but at 1 p.m. I did a test live stream to an unlisted link, and so that was index 0 when the time was like 11:30, because that was more recent. So that's the way in which it's pulling in the metadata. Which page am I on here? And then the chapter title is going to be anything that you want in this field. So you could just type in text, but what's going to be more satisfying is using a variable there. And so what I have for my Google Sheet is I have, scroll across, I have a spreadsheet that I'm calling chapter, and then I'm basically referencing that spreadsheet to pull in A1, A2, A3, and I'm using custom variables to update that. So it gets a bit, a world within a world inception. But this is the secret sauce here, which is using the variable. So I'm using the sheet index 0, and then the sheet name chapter is what we had on that other page. And then the cell number is A1, for example, but instead of 1, I'm using a custom variable for the row, and then I'm updating that variable every time we make a change. So if I hit a chapter marker, it's sending this command with the variable to YouTube to lay down that chapter marker. And it's also updating the row that I'm targeting within the sheet. Hopefully that makes sense. There's, it's not, it's fairly logical. There's just a lot of little variables upon variables that are inserted into variables to run it within Companion in a way where the logic is going to advance each time you do something. So hopefully that helped. Where are we up to? Jamie also says, won't there be off if you use your equipment time unless you start your YouTube at the same time as your equipment? Another great question. The YouTube chapter marker seems to sync up. I'm not sure exactly how it does it, because, so one of the challenges with YouTube, and I think what got me out last week, was depending on the latency settings that you have within YouTube, there can be anywhere from a second through to like 30 seconds delay before you go live. Let me see if I can come into, just make sure I'm not getting audio looping through. Here we go. Okay. Let me, if I got that. Okay. And there we go. Cool. So under stream latency, you'll see normal latency, low latency, and ultra low latency. And so you go live on YouTube, but what people are watching has some sort of delay on that. If you use ultra low, I think you have to use HD. You can't use 4K. I'm streaming in 4K, and so I have to use normal latency, which for my testing ranged somewhere between a 16 to 24 second delay. So that's where I've changed my go live sequence to have a 25-second delay. So I start my show, and 25 seconds later, after the web encoder is pushing video through, it's going to go live. So that sequence is important, but for whatever reason, it seems to get the comment right when you put that down. Whereas, when you hit a chat, so how we're firing off chats in the comments before. Let me see if I can pull up by way of example, YouTube, let me just go back to chat one. And so I will just run a basic, hello, where are you joining in the world from? Let me see here. And it's gonna come through before you see that. So you'll see that out of sync. Whereas the comments seem to be working well. So hopefully that helps. All right, Jason, thanks for your comment. Love this integration with Google Sheets. Now all I need is some automation to have Google Sheets go to YouTube descriptions and Davinci resolve. Yeah, and you can totally do at least the first part. The Davinci resolve I haven't looked into, as I was saying before. Automation have Google Sheets go to YouTube descriptions. It's an interesting. So I feel like the Google Sheets companion module has just in the last several months gotten up to a place where I've felt like it's what's the word? Not stable enough, or like useful enough that I can bring stuff in and out reliably. And it's also the scenario where I'm wondering, because when you put together a live show, it's not just the technical aspects of cameras and lights and all that kind of stuff. It's also the content, and trying to find a way to, in preparing a show, write notes and like things you want to cover, and then to be able to access that live is important. And my process so far has been basically on my phone, in the Apple Notes, is kind of, throughout the week, I'll kind of go, okay, I want to talk about Google Sheets, and I usually break things down into 3 chapters. And so it'll be sort of some intro or demo, and then how to install it, and then some sort of troubleshooting thing, that kind of thing. So I will write the notes into my phone, and then I will use, for more complex things, I can use a teleprompter, and I have that kind of thing you'll see here, where I can sort of scroll through that, but and I can make it automatically update when I go through each segment. But short of doing, I've never tried the actual like voice sync where it syncs to your voice with a teleprompter. Maybe I should try that, because I can get it to the start of a topic, like PTZ, like part 3. So this will be like my show notes here, part 1, and it'll start the show like that. But then, and I can also get it to start rolling, but it doesn't, like if you ad-lib and go off a bit script, it just keeps rolling through. And then next time I chat to part 2, it'll jump to part 2 and it'll keep rolling. So if you do have pre-scripted things, that can kind of work in terms of automating it. But where I'm going with this is I'm coming back to Google Sheets, and I'm just thinking like an easier way of doing it. For example, here's a live stream I did about lighting, right? And I've talked about this one before, but this has got a whole bunch of things in it, a whole list of gear and stuff that you need to put together to make a lighting network work. And you could very easily lose track of that. And so for me, I think it's about maybe in a notes app, and then just pasting that into a spreadsheet so that each line is a topic. And then you can actually, the other thing that I hadn't shown here, but also in the this profile, not the YouTube one, the log one that we have in here, is when you update the list items, you can sort of use that as a teleprompter. So in my spreadsheet here, it'll generate, when you set it up, one of the sheets it generates is a sheet called Next. And so that's kind of, if I just make this full screen, so imagine this either on a laptop or some sort of laptop that's outputting into a teleprompter. So you could be looking at this on teleprompter, or even just like a laptop that's next to your camera. And so we're going to go through content. So let me go back to my, I think list 1, wasn't it? So this is where we could be talking about our, a show about how to put together a lighting network. And as I step through each part, we can go, okay, DMX definition and 300D Mark II. And now we want to talk about the Amaran 22C. And so each time I'm going through, remember this list of, like the whole list, these are basically points of contact. So it's kind of like cue cards that you can have up part 2. We're going to talk about how, now that we've talked about all of our devices, how do we put them into a network, and we're going to control them together. And we can use this NTEC DMX box, or we can use USB or Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and we need an application to do that and create some presets and explaining 512 channels and all that kind of stuff. So then we get into, I think it was part 3, like how do we go about automating this? So these could all be cue cards that come up on a screen in front of you that I'm looking at now in my teleprompter. But behind that, you could also have, every time you go to a new segment, so as part 3, I've hit the button, it's logged the YouTube chapter marker, and maybe even it's put down a comment with a link, which is what I've started doing in terms of if I'm talking about something, there's a hyperlink that you can click because you're sitting at home in front of a, probably a laptop, maybe a phone, but you can sort of pull up other products or whatever that we're talking about. So, excuse me, that's another way of having spreadsheet data that's pulled, like not only like pulled into Companion, but can be used in a wider network by a whole lot of people. So you could have producers or talent who are basically getting everyone on the same page using this. So this basically uses a trigger. And so each time the variable changes, it's updating that cell. So it's pulling through the current data is how that's set up. And then I've just formatted the Google Sheets to be black background and make the text really big. So, Google Sheets, also teleprompter. And yeah, if I get to the point in my live stream where I'm using Google Sheets as basically like a replacement teleprompter, I'll let you know, because it has some advantages to segments and chapters particularly when you're running it yourself. Like if you don't have someone on teleprompter, then that would help a lot. If you have a crew and they're rolling a teleprompter for you, then that's awesome and that helps a lot. But otherwise, not as good. Let me see if I missed anything. I feel like I've got everything here. I'll just close this one down. That was about it. All right. All right, well, hopefully that helped give you some ideas of how to connect Companion with Google Sheets and some of the things that you could use it for. davidjoshuaford.com is my website. If you'd like to go grab the DJF Log profile, which is pre-built so you can get started logging metadata for your productions into Google Sheets. Until next week, take care. I'll see you then.